Hello and welcome to this edition of Own the Journey, and today we have an extra special guest, Mr. Freddie Wehbe. Thank you very much for being with us. We are so excited to learn from you. You've had some extraordinary experiences in your life, and we want to be able to share that with our viewers today. So if you wouldn't mind, start off just by telling us a little bit how you go from engineering, aerospace engineer, working on the space shuttle, and then ending up doing restaurant work and working with amazing people in the sports industry.
It's a long journey. I've always wanted to be a pilot, and I came to the United States to be a pilot, and eventually got into engineering. I'm a little bit too big for piloting. Got a degree in mechanical engineering for my bachelor's, and I got a master's in aerospace engineering. At the same time, interned at the Space Coast, and ended up getting a job with Lockheed Martin, and
Nice.
worked a little on the space program, and it wasn't, quickly learned it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
The program then was missing some things and was kind of in the downwards, This is in the early 90s, late 80s. Started looking for something else, took a pink slip, and eventually started working for Dominos. Had delivered pizzas in college while I was at FIT, and learned the system, and then as an engineer you kind of always think how you can make things better. I contacted the franchisee in Melbourne. It's like, hey, what does it take to franchise? And he kind of took me under his wing, and I took my classes and eventually franchised a Domino's franchise, and we bought the Gainesville market together. I bought them out 4 years later and grew the market in Gainesville from 3 stores to 13 stores. We had the #1 Domino's in the world for a few years back, and probably the most awarded franchise in the Domino's world out there. It's a pretty good run. So this was from 95 till 2015. And then in early 16, I sold the company, started looking for what to do, spent about a year developing a marketing and consulting company, started helping other folks, and from that, a year later, Coach Spurrier called me. He says, "Hey, let's do. I'm looking for a restaurant," and I ran into a couple of friends one day on a trip to Vegas, and they said, "This is available," and that's how the whole idea was born. And the last 3 or 4 years, we've been working on this project, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
Yeah, I love it. And downstairs, the environment I saw is absolutely amazing. It's a museum that has a bunch of Coach Spurrier's stuff in it, his awards and his trophies and equipment from some of the players. It's absolutely amazing. Congratulations for putting it together. If you don't mind, share with us just a little bit about all the research that you did. You were telling me about it before we got started. The data that you pulled together in order to make sure that this was successful, it's unbelievable.
Data is king, and all the clients I've worked with, it's all about data and doing research and investing. Most business owners will invest in a marketing campaign or will expand without doing true data to what their consumers want. And in every business I've worked with and consulted for, it's all about the data. Data's king, and data's out there. You just have to find it, and it's not cheap. Whatever the investment, it's an investment, right? So for this specific case, Coach, this is a legacy place. Coach does not want to fail. He has won more trophies than probably any other coach out there. He's a legend in the football business.
Absolutely.
So for University of Florida alone, we've been playing football since 1932, I believe. And since then, we've won 9 SEC championships. Coach Spurrier's won 7 of them.
Wow.
He's won our first national championship. He's our first Heisman Trophy winner. He's the only person in the College Hall of Fame alive today. No other person can say that. He was in as a coach and as a player.
Wow.
He's the only Power 5 coach in all of football that owns a record of the most winnings in 2 different colleges. He's the only Heisman to coach a Heisman, and I can go on and on. And he's got a following. The people love him and chase him, and so the restaurant had to meet those expectations. This is his last legacy. Coach turns 77 tomorrow.
Oh wow.
Yep, and he's healthy, and we will. He's a great guy. He helps the community, and the restaurant had to succeed, and Coach doesn't like to fail. So hence the research. So we spent a couple years on data analysis, research of what is missing from Gainesville, what this should be like. We visited 57 celebrity restaurants, met with ownership. Coach helped me get in the door to meet with different celebrities out there, whether it's Marino or Michael Jordan or Troy Aikman or Elway's restaurant, the Mantle family, Mike Shanahan. I can go on, Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
And just really learn, what does success look like, what does failure look like, and learn what to do here and not to do here. The list of failures in the restaurant business is high. The list of celebrity restaurants even higher.
Okay.
I can throw some names at you that have just recently closed. Gretzky's is closed, Solomon's closed, Harry Carey's closed, Mickey Mantle's is closed, the first Michael Jordan is closed. It's Marino's shut down, so all his restaurants. Some of the Shulas have shut down. The list is big, and you study to why they failed, and then you look at the ones that are successful, whether it's in Rio de Janeiro or Cape Town or Germany or Toronto or New York or San Francisco, or Troy's in Dallas, very successful, Shanahan's in Denver, very successful. And you pick up the elements of success, you put them all together, you get all the reports from your consultants, you hand them to the one big consultant, they put it all together, and this is what we have.
That's awesome. Yeah. So really, the story that I'm hearing you tell is that before you make any investments in the business itself, you're taking the time to invest in the research to make sure that the investments in the business are successful. Take the time, do the work.
If you want to be successful.
Yeah. Or you can just take a gamble.
I mean, the restaurant business the last 40 years is 80% failure. Wow.
I had no idea. And you guys are literally to the point in this environment where if you wanted to get reservations, it's a month out. Yep. And you're feeding about 1,000 people a night.
We're one of the hottest restaurants in the state of Florida. We get folks from everywhere coming in.
Wow.
We have a great chef and Chef Mark. We have a great team. Our operating partner, Drew Johnson, is one of the best in the business. We hired some of the best managers we can hire. Our staff is Coach Spurrier reminded us before we opened, and quote unquote this, Nick Saban is in a national championship game every other year because he recruits the best.
So you bring the best people in.
Absolutely.
Create the best experience.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about the culture in your environment now. I'm sure that's a big focus. I mean, there's a lot of demand for workers. There's a lot of challenges in that environment. It can't be easy to keep a top-notch motivated staff in an environment where people come and go quite a bit.
You have to rely on your managers and make sure we're all on the same page and we're all aligned that culture is priority number one. You want a place where people don't want to leave.
Right.
They're happy, they're taken care of, they're appreciated, and they're making money. Money is not number 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's culture. It's taking care of people. It's thanking people for doing a good job. It's writing a birthday card. It's texting them and say happy birthday, and then it's money. It's money. And in any business, it's the same. Principles are the same. You have to take care of the people. I always say the community will always take care of the business that takes care of the community, and the people will always take care of the business that takes care of the people.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, very good. Tell us about how the experiences from Dominos and having to build that up and having so much success has continued to pay forward, and what you've learned from that experience and use today.
I get that a lot, and that's a cool question, and the answer is going to probably surprise you as it surprises many. It's the same.
Really?
Running a Domino's or running this or working in the space shuttle are the same thing. You have to have the right people. You have to do your research and data ahead of time. The reason our space program went behind 10 years is we didn't do our complete data and relied on a company in Utah that said, space shuttle can go up at 32 degrees, which it shouldn't, and they took a gamble. We lost 2 shuttles, and the whole program's gone.
Right.
Now we're relying on new leadership and different minds to bring the space program back, and it's coming back the right way, and we're leading again by why did we lose 30 years of failure, Same thing in the Domino's business. What do people want from a Domino's? They want their pizza to be right. They want it delivered on time. They want it delivered by a friendly person. And they want it to be consistent. And what's in here? They want their food to be consistent all the time. They want served by good, friendly folks, whether it's at the bar or the table. The price might be different between a pizza and a steak, but the product is the same. It's the same as any other business. The fundamentals do not change. You do what consumers want, what the guests want, what the client wants, and you meet their expectations, and you don't say that. Nick Saban never goes out and says, I won a championship because of our recruiting. He works very hard recruiting the best. He works very hard training them all year, and they've won, 6, 7, 8, whatever the number is.
Right.
It's the same thing. Winning is winning. In the restaurant business, winning is seeing customers happy, customers coming back, customers talking about your business and telling other folks. And we've been in business 7 months. We opened on August 11th.
Wow.
And in 7 months, we've developed a very special restaurant that's very popular, and it's a destination for thousands of people.
Yeah, from hundreds of miles away every single day. Yeah, you were showing me the maps earlier, so like how far people were coming on a daily basis and going home, driving for 2 hours to come eat and 2 hours to go home. That's amazing. So what I heard you say is when it comes to the food, largely is you're keeping your promise. It's a product, so people have an expectation. You meet or exceed those expectations, and you do it with a smile on your face. It's a service business at the end of the day, and set a clear expectation and make sure you deliver.
Correct. And what the data said, Gainesville was missing a polished casual restaurant that serves farm-to-table food. Good elevated food, but not high-end prices. So we work with tons of farmers around us, and everything we have is fresh, made from scratch. We don't prep zero. Everything's made from scratch.
Wow.
Everything's farm to table. If you ate a steak tonight, it's from a local farm. If you had dairy, it's from a local farm. Our vegetables from local farms. Our seafood is fresh. We don't even have a freezer in the restaurant. We have an ice cream freezer.
Yeah.
The seafood is delivered daily.
Wow.
Caught this morning. That's how fresh it is, whether you eat mahi tonight or redfish, and that was missing from the Gainesville area. That's what the research said.
Yeah.
If we were to open in a different city, I don't think the food would be that way. It's you kind of do your homework to what the city is needing, and you develop a menu from that research.
Listen to the customer. Yeah, I love it. Well, you mentioned the local community, and I know you've got not just in supporting the local farmers, but you have a big passion for making a difference in the community and supporting nonprofit organizations and others. Talk to us about how that's woven into your DNA.
I believe it's a must for any business, for any member in the community. You have a choice. You help folks as much as you can, and you make your community a better place. And I'm blessed to say I've been in Gainesville since 1994, and I've made an impact. And by helping charities, by helping them with products when I had Domino's, by some financial, but more importantly, the research and the things that they need mostly help. A nonprofit might need a good marketing strategy. Might need a better messaging, might need a better social media company. That's where I come in and just help them do better so they can retain and attain more of their financial needs as well.
Right.
But I firmly believe in giving back. I believe in giving back to different, we change it around so you can change different folks and help different groups. And even with my Domino's days, we participated in tons of different events. Pizza, everybody loves pizza, so we were there handing out slices. And again, I said it earlier, the community will help the business that supports the community.
Yeah, I love it. So for those that are considering a franchise, what advice would you have? Do it, don't do it. If it's right for you, how do you know if it's right for you?
So franchises make it a lot easier for you to succeed. They do the homework, they do the research, they do give you the guide, the book. As long as you practice those things they give you, those the standards, and you exceed them, you're going to be successful. You know, how many times do you go to a good Starbucks store and you can tell and feel it's well managed, and how many times do you go to another Starbucks that's mismanaged?
Yeah.
So you're on really, it comes down to that one unit following the standards and the requirements of that franchise. You know, how many times you go to McDonald's? McDonald's gets bashed all the time, but they're number one restaurant in the world for a reason.
Right.
You know, consistency is the key, and they're consistently average, but they do a fantastic job of what they provide. You know, but how many times you go to McDonald's and get frustrated, and how many times you go and get happy? The difference is one manager is leading his store, hiring better people, training better, and following the standards, versus manager B that doesn't care and is just there for a job, and you can see it in the personnel he has around him.
Right.
You know, Americans are very astute. We know what we want. We know what good is. You know, no one can be faked. And in the franchise business, they do an excellent job providing the tools, but the franchisee and his managers need to apply those things to be successful.
Execute.
Yeah.
Follow the manual. I love it.
Yeah, in the franchise or in the restaurant business, in any other business, success is a combination of three things. It's anticipation, preparation, and execution. And it's a three-legged stool. Success doesn't happen without all three. You know, you'll see a lot of people prepare, but they don't anticipate. You know, or in a college town, you know that after April, this town empties out.
Yeah.
You don't hire in March and April to make up for the summer period where you can't hire.
Yeah.
If you wait till May, you're not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You know, and execution is a must. It's not only a must; it's a prerequisite to success.
Absolutely is. Yeah. So in our business, we talk and hear a lot about security in the IT arena, and I'm familiar a lot with CEO fraud, but you have written and are now well known for employee fraud, which is a whole different subject, and it's been republished in 400 different publications in today's world. Well, we had to make a pivot. That happens a lot in business. You have to be ready to shift and move. So we were enjoying the open air bar outside, and you guys have a big party going on, a big group coming in, and they fired up the music and ran us off. So thanks for letting us come into this championship room. Holy cow, this is amazing. Tell us a little bit about what this represents.
This is one of 5 private rooms at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. It's called the Championship Room, and it's the UF National Championship gallery of all the coaches that have won a national championship. We have 18 coaches here. These are portraits of everyone that won a national championship. I believe it's 39 national championships between those 18 men and women. Yep.
That is fantastic. Oh, that's cool.
Coach Spurrier right there.
Yeah.
Coach Urban Meyer, Coach Billy Donovan, Mas Holloway from the Olympics, and on and on. And we even have a space for the next coach.
For the next one. Yeah, I love it.
So they do recruiting dinners in this room, and it's also rentable by different groups. People love it. It's our most famous room.
Yeah, I bet it is. That's a lot of fun. Well, we were just getting ready to talk about employee fraud. And so you've obviously become an expert in this. You're published in so many different articles around the world. Tell us what we need to know about that.
I mean, it's a taboo. When I first, in Domino's, it was, you in the restaurant business, it's pennies. It's profits of 10 to 15%, and you work so hard to gain a 15% EBITDA and make your company valuable, and then you're missing 2 to 3 points. It's like, what's going on? And after digging deep into it, it was fraud.
Wow.
Fraud. So met with some folks and the experts in the business, met with the FBI, met with the sheriff here locally, with experts in fraud, and learned that in the restaurant business alone, 6.5% of revenues is stolen every year.
Holy cow.
Yep. So today the restaurant business, I believe, is $960 billion this year. 6.5% is a big number.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So in retail, it's 6%. And the FBI says, and it's approved, that employee theft is the #1 crime in the United States, ahead of credit card fraud,
Wow.
ahead of
I had
any
no
other
idea.
fraud. Yep.
So how do you combat it? What do you do?
You do your homework and you do your research, and after a year and a half of research, you put systems in place. You make sure you're interviewing correctly. You look at background checks. You get software that lets you know and identifies. We created software with Dominos that went nationwide and worked with the corporate team that tells us, of even a $2 or $3 fraud piece. And
Wow.
today, I just read this in the magazine, 15% of restaurant receipts, tips, are adjusted by the server.
Holy cow.
And 99% of people don't know that.
Because they're not paying that close attention.
You might tip $10 and they change it to 12.
Yeah.
No big deal, right?
Right.
You don't even know. You're probably a victim. You're probably a victim. You're probably a victim. And it's out there.
Right.
It's out there. Some companies have allowed fraud to be an acceptable number on their financials. CBS, they're okay allowing 10% fraud and theft versus combating it or putting cameras or hiring security guards. And you can read about it. It's pretty open today.
Yeah.
Walgreens is another company. And it's something that we're heading to, especially with the way the economy is today. And at the end, if you are a business owner and you don't do your due diligence and have systems in place, you're not going to stop fraud. You're going to limit fraud. If you can be in the 2 percentile, you are in the bottom 20% of businesses in America. If you can be in the 1 percentile of theft, internal theft, you can be in probably the top 10 percentile of the country.
Wow.
And it's a big number. We're talking billions of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea that it was that big of a deal. And well, thanks for bringing it to our attention and sharing, because that's going to help a lot of people, I'm sure, put the right systems in place. And obviously hiring is a critical part of any organization, but that's further motivation to make sure that we're doing it right.
The most eyeing fact I got from the FBI is 74% of Americans will steal if they can.
Really?
3 out of 4.
Will steal if they can.
They can. And that's in my article.
Wow. Well, we'll have to check that out and make sure and share it as a part of all this. Yeah. When you break things down in this industry, it's an environment. Obviously, you've done your research, but the margins are so slim and so tough to get. All of these things add up. So it's not just minding the details around the employees, but in every aspect of the business. Talk to us about how that has turned into a smooth operation inside your organization. How do you keep all the right things in motion?
So the most important thing, make sure you have the right people.
Yeah, sure.
You have a good training system. But truly, a successful restaurant works on consumer experience and on the top line of their business. If you manage your business, and a lot of franchisees and business owners, especially in the restaurant business, will work on the bottom line as their number one priority over the top line, or the customer experience, or the customer satisfaction. I always compare it to tennis. If you play in a game of tennis and your eyes are on the scoreboard, you will never win. If you play in a game of tennis and your eyes are on the ball, the scoreboard will take care of itself.
Okay.
I see so many, even in my previous life of Domino's, we've got 1,300 franchisees, and I would say about a third focus so much on the bottom line that they don't have the top line to sustain long-term success. And in any business, you got to make sure your customers are happy. Customer satisfaction, customer experience. You walk into a restaurant today, you are most probably going to get a customer transaction. Okay, and what you should get is a customer experience, and a lot of companies can't differentiate between both, and it's a huge in any business.
Sure.
You want to feel special any place you go to.
Yeah.
Banks, is another place. It's like a transaction. I don't want to deal with transactions. I'm a people person, and so most people are. They appreciate that extra love, a hug, a hello, a good morning, a good night, a greeting.
Right.
It's just those things are kind of disappearing away from our businesses, and we need to make sure they come back.
I agree wholeheartedly. You talked about appreciation earlier with your employees, and the same is true with your customers, and making sure that they feel appreciated and special as well.
And you got to take care of you have to have the right people. I think that's what you mentioned, but you got to give them the tools to succeed as well, and appreciate them and recognize their success. Good team members will take care of customers. If you take care of the people that work for you, your team members, they will take care of the guests.
I totally agree wholeheartedly. One of the things that we say in our organization is appreciation's the currency for motivation, and helping people to understand that they bring value to the table, and that you're grateful for their contributions and the work that they do and the talents that they bring is absolutely critical.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, speaking of teaching, one of the areas that you guys focus is you teach podcasts. You have a whole podcast room downstairs, and holy cow, it is cool. All the helmets on the walls. Tell us what people need to know if they want to launch a podcast. How do they reach out to you guys if they want to follow along? What's involved with all of that?
So when part of the research of this restaurant, we talked to Disney, who's the king of experience.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we build podcast rooms in our hotels. Sometimes you watch ESPN, or, we have rooms that people use. You should think about putting one in your restaurants. At first it's like, cost, ROI,
Yeah.
And the more we dug deep, and it was the best move we have. So a year before we even opened, we already started doing some podcasts. We partnered with the University of Florida School of Journalism. We do podcasts together. We hired a production manager who's on staff here.
Wow.
And we produce, I think, 18 different shows right now, probably 7-8 hours a day. Popular sports talks here in town. And anyone can use the room to produce their own podcast.
Oh, that's neat.
We do some national shows, like on big game days. We've had the SEC use the room, SEC Network, ESPN's used it, CBS Sports has used it. We just had CBS Overnight Sports in New York. His plane got canceled in Orlando. And he goes, hey, I heard you have a podcast. Can I come do my overnight show from your podcast? Cool. He was here from 10 to 2 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Producing to the whole world. It's kind of cool kind of thing. It's wired correctly. It's designed correctly. It's we can link into any radio or TV station. We also have licensing to 39 platforms. So whether you want on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, you name it, we can do it all. We can do it all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, but you have a podcast that actually teaches people how to be successful in the podcast arena.
Correct, and that's more as a partnership with the University of Florida. So we produce the sports of the season. Right now it's baseball. So we have a show tomorrow, 11 o'clock. It's called On Deck, and it has either the coach or the announcers of the baseball team, and then the producer, the writer, everything is students.
Nice.
And they work and learn, and they become podcasters on their own.
I love that.
And we do that at the university studio, at the journalism school.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And then we have a lot of interns that come in here as well, and they sit and learn from our production manager. And podcast has taken off in the last 2 years.
For sure.
I mean, we've gone from, I think, 100,000 to 3 million podcasts in 2 years. Yep.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to do a podcast, but I think 5 years from now, podcasts will replace radio. And the difference, they're both the same mediums. One, you have to listen on demand. One, you listen when you want to listen to.
Yeah, I love it. So what would you tell somebody who was trying to figure out how to get successful or how to become successful and compete with all that noise? I mean, from a marketing consulting perspective, if somebody came and said, hey, I've got this great idea, I want to do this, I'm guessing the first thing you're going to say is do some research.
I mean, research is a prerequisite. When it comes to businesses, from my experience, 90% of business owners or business leadership cannot differentiate between branding and marketing. And that's the biggest mistake I see in businesses. Business owners want to succeed, and they either go through marketing route and they skip the branding piece and don't have a plan. And if they're not parallel, if branding and marketing are not parallel, and you're building a brand in the long term, this is failure and this is failure. first understand the difference between what branding means and what marketing means. One's tangible, one is not. That's the most important mistake I see. You have to do your research, and you have to look at the expense of marketing as an investment over an expense. I've heard so many people in my life, business owners, you mean I'm going to spend 4% of my revenues on marketing? It's like going down the waste. It's like, it's an investment in your business. If you want to grow, it's the only way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only way to go. The average restaurant spends about 7.5% of revenues on marketing.
Wow.
Yeah, and from that, I would say 30 to 40% goes into branding.
And what's the biggest mistake that you see people make beyond the branding and the marketing piece? I mean, there's so much noise in the industry. There's so many ways people can invest their marketing dollars. How do they know what to do? How do they
hire someone to do it? Someone that knows what they're doing.
Okay.
Invest in that company or that person. Marketing is very evolving.
Changing all the time.
Always. I mean, we've seen the digital slice of marketing explode the last 2 years. There's many companies, some do it right, some do it not right. We've seen televisions move away into a digital platform. For the first time ever, there are more digital networks than regular networks. There's in many cities, Gainesville included, there are more digital TV stations, Hulu's of the world and Apple TVs of the world, than cable.
Wow.
And you're going to see that even more in the next 2 years. And you still see companies that put all their TV money on cable. 1 out of 2 people is not listening to cable. At one time, yes, it was a great investment. Are you doing your homework? What's the data show in your town? New York City is 28% cable. 28%.
Wow. So
if there's a game on TV and you're spending thousands of dollars on the commercial, you're only reaching 28% of the folks.
Yeah.
That's what marketing companies do for you.
Wow.
They take your budget and they break it down into different aspects. As much as you hear TV is dead, it's not. As much as you hear radio is dead, it's not. But there are different avenues of mediums of marketing that, depending on your business, you have to play to win.
Right. And if somebody literally is running on a shoestring budget and they can't bring in the really good marketing consultant, just do the best you can research online, or are there certain places you'd send people?
If your budget is slim, guerrilla marketing is the way to go.
Okay.
Guerrilla marketing. And there are a lot of things to do within that. And there's a lot of good books about guerrilla marketing that work. And, at the end, you have to differentiate your business from the competition. I call it, branding to me is differentiate or die. Marketing is something you have to do, and everybody does it. The businesses that don't brand themselves and create and build a brand, it takes 5 years to really build a good brand. It takes 5 minutes to ruin it too.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand the principles of branding, you will not fail. You will not succeed.
Right.
And you will fail.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you have people coming in to see you as a marketing consultant, what are the first things that you're blowing up about what they're doing? You're shifting because they're wasting money or they're putting energy in the wrong place.
So typically my first 60 days is study what they're doing and really listen to the customers and talk to their customers and see where they're putting their avenues of marketing in and what their brand looks like. And really don't change anything until you get all the data back. And then the data will tell you what the plan should be. And sometimes I'll go to the client and say, this is what you should do. This is what your next 24 months should look like. This is what it's going to cost. Some people do it, some people don't.
Right.
I've seen so many businesses go out of business 2 years later.
Yeah.
It's not even funny.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's some challenges with that. I mean, on one side, it's like, well, if they would have just listened, then maybe you could have made a difference.
And sometimes it's not just marketing. I mean,
Sure.
To me, marketing is beyond just a medium. It's also the people you service, what people say in your company. How clean your restroom is. People don't realize that's all marketing. How clean the glasses of your beer glass in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Are you cleaning your AC vents? That's marketing. People see all that.
That's right.
Are your employees not wearing wrinkled shirts? Is that marketing? Yes. Most people say no, but it is.
It is.
You know.
It all matters. It's part
Absolutely.
of the brand, part of the image.
Yep. You got to work on your four walls. I call it four walls marketing. Before you go out and invest in any mediums, you got to fix your four wall marketing.
Yeah, that's sage advice, I think. I love it. When you spend time in the community, when you spend time in the organization, you know, obviously you get pulled in a lot of directions. Mm-hmm. Working restaurants is hard on a family. How do you balance? I mean, I know it's tough, but what would your advice be to those trying to manage that life balance?
So I think that's a very important question, and it's resulting in a lot of issues with families and business owners. You know, at the end of the day, as a business owner, you have an obligation to balance your family and your work. Mm-hmm. I work a lot, but I also give my time to my kids and my wife as equally as I give my restaurant. And you have to convince them this is the plan, this is how long it's going to take. But you do see a lot of, and this might be a taboo, no one wants to talk about it, just like employee fraud, right? A restaurant manager or owner working 60 hours a week, okay? Then spending time after work, about 30 hours a week, the bars, drinking with friends, and then going home. And typically that ends in not good things.
Yes.
I've seen it throughout my life. It's like you have to make sure your priorities are straight, and it's up to you what you want out of your family. Mm-hmm. You know, if you don't give enough time for your kids are not going to be successful. If you don't support and go to basketball games and football games and whatever's at school and make time for that and work your schedule around that, you know, and you make your restaurant more important or your business more important than that, the long road is not going to be fruitful. That's how I look at it. And I've seen time management be a big issue in today's American world. We especially with millennials, you know, they'll spend 8 hours on their TikTok and phones and games and social and Facebook, but they won't do 2 hours of reading or things that will make them better. You know, that worries me a little bit. Yeah,
I can relate to that. I'm constantly poking at my kids to put away the electronics. It's a thing. Yeah, well, I think that's good advice, to make sure that you're really spending the time, focusing on how much time you're spending in the business and making sure that you're making equal investments in the family so that they know it and they see it, and then having a conversation about it, being intentional about those things. That's really good.
And be transparent.
Yeah.
Be transparent. There's nothing wrong going out, but don't go out every night.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that like all businesses, there are busy seasons and there are slow seasons, and if you prepare them for, hey, we got crazy couple of weeks or whatever it is, then they understand. They're in the game. Yeah. Very good. Well, Freddie, thanks for taking the time with us today. Thanks for being willing to pivot with us and share your sage advice. We very much appreciate it. And cheers to you for owning your journey.
Thank you.